Something is unfinished between you, and they know it. Not in the vague, abstract way that people sometimes use to explain why they can't move on from something. In the specific, concrete, keep surfacing at inconvenient moments way. The kind of unfinished that follows you into other conversations, that makes certain silences heavier than they should be, that arrives uninvited in the middle of ordinary days and refuses to be filed back under done. They've been trying to file it. That's what I want to start with. Because I think it's important to understand that what's been happening on their side isn't simply that they've been thinking about you. People think about all kinds of things without being compelled to act on them. What's been happening is more specific than thinking, more insistent, more like something that has been actively resisting being set aside. Every time they've tried to close this, every time they've told themselves that chapter is finished, move forward, what's done is done, something has pushed back, not from outside, from inside, from the part of them that knows with a certainty that doesn't respond to rational argument that the way things were left is not acceptable, that something was interrupted, that a conversation that needed to complete itself was cut short before it said what it needed to say. And that part of them has been getting louder. Let me describe what the ending or the non-ending, because that's more accurate, actually looked like. Because I think the shape of how things were left matters for understanding why they can't stay left that way. It didn't have closure, not the real kind. Not the kind that comes from two people actually saying the things that needed to be said, actually hearing each other, actually arriving at some shared understanding of what happened and what it meant. Whatever the ending looked like, whether it was sudden or gradual, explosive or quietly fading, whether words were said or whether silence did the work, it left something suspended, a sentence without a period. And you felt that. You've been feeling it. The specific quality of something incomplete that lives in the body as a low-grade tension, not consuming, not incapacitating, but present. The way a partially resolved chord sits in the ear, technically finished but harmonically unsatisfied, waiting for the note that would make it complete. They're coming back with that note, not because they've figured out everything, not because they've processed this cleanly and are arriving with neat conclusions and tidy resolutions, because the alternative, continuing to live with the suspended sentence, continuing to carry the incomplete chord, has become more uncomfortable than the prospect of the conversation. Hold on. Because there's something specific about what tipped this for them, and I want to try to name it. Something happened. Not a dramatic external event necessarily, something more interior, a moment possibly ordinary on the surface where the usual management of this stopped working, where the tools they've been using to keep this at a manageable distance suddenly became insufficient. Let me try to describe what that moment might have looked like. They were fine, genuinely fine, or the working version of fine that people maintain when they're committed to moving forward. And then something small happened, a moment of unexpected quiet, or a specific quality of light, or something overheard in a conversation, or just the particular way an ordinary Tuesday afternoon sat, and without warning, without invitation, without any obvious cause, something about you was suddenly completely present. Not a memory exactly, more like a presence, your specific presence, the particular quality of what it is to be in your company, the specific texture of how you think, how you listen, how you exist in a room, arriving in the middle of their ordinary day without permission. And in that arriving, something became undeniable. That what exists between you is not something they can simply decide to be done with. It's not subject to decision in that way. There's an image I keep seeing. Two people standing on opposite sides of something, not a wall, not a barrier exactly, more like a table with things on it, things that were placed there during the last conversation or the last argument or the last interaction or whatever the final moment was. Objects that represent what was said and what wasn't said, what was felt and what wasn't expressed. And both of them have been standing on their respective sides of this table, not facing each other. That's the specific quality of this image, turned slightly away, as though the standing at the table is happening at an angle, as though neither of them is quite willing to face the table directly and look at what's on it. But they're still there. That's the thing. Both of them still there. Neither of them having walked fully away from the table. There's been movement, steps away, attempts to leave, but something keeps returning them to proximity to this particular table, these particular things, this particular unfinished business. And recently, in the last period, in whatever window is closest to now, they've started to turn toward the table again, slowly, with the specific reluctance of someone who knows that looking directly at something is going to require them to deal with it. They're turning. The more I sit with this, the more I keep finding something about what they actually want to say. And I want to try to describe it because I think knowing the quality of what's coming, even without the specific words, helps you receive it with the right kind of openness. It's not an apology, or not only an apology. I keep getting something more substantial than that. Something that has the quality of a reckoning rather than a repair attempt. The specific thing that comes from someone who has taken genuine time with something difficult and arrived somewhere more honest than where they started. They understand something now that they didn't understand before, about what happened, about their role in it, about the specific ways they contributed to the thing being left the way it was left, not in the performed surface accountability of someone saying the right things without having done the interior work, in the specific, slightly uncomfortable way of someone who actually sat with something and came out the other side knowing more than when they went in. What they understood changed something, and what changed in them is what's driving the need to come back. Not to fix the past. They're not naive enough to think a conversation can undo what time has already written, but to be honest about it, to say the true thing finally, even if the true thing arrives late. Because some truths are worth saying even when their timing is imperfect. Wait. Actually, I want to go somewhere different here because something just shifted in what I'm picking up. It's not just about the past. I've been describing this like it's primarily backward facing. Like what they're coming to talk about is the history between you, the what happened, and the I understand now, and the I'm sorry for my part. And that's there. That's part of it. But underneath it, and this is the part I wasn't expecting to find, the part that changes the quality of what's coming underneath the reckoning with the past, there's something forward facing. They're coming back because they want to know if there's still something here, not as an assumption, not as an expectation, as a question, a real, vulnerable, I genuinely don't know the answer question about whether what existed between you has survived, what happened to it. Whether the thing that made this matter, the specific quality of this connection that made the unfinished business so persistent is still present, still possible, still worth something. That question is terrifying to bring because it requires being honest about wanting something before knowing if that wanting will be met. Requires exposing hope before receiving confirmation that hope is warranted. That's the vulnerable thing they're walking toward you carrying. Not just a conversation, a question they actually need answered. I want to describe something about how you've been carrying this period, because the reading isn't only about them. It's about you and about where you are as this approaches. There's been a specific quality to the time since things were left unfinished. Not simple, not linear, not the clean arc of getting over something, more like the actual complicated, non-linear reality of processing something that had real weight to it. Where some days felt genuinely okay, where the forward motion felt real, where the distance felt manageable, where you wondered if this was what moving through something felt like, and other days the distance collapsed without warning. Something would happen, small, often completely unrelated, and suddenly the unfinished thing was not at a distance at all, was right there, present with a vividness that surprised you given how long it had been. And you'd feel the full weight of it again, briefly, before the management kicked back in. You haven't fully set this down. Not because you're stuck, because it hasn't completed its arc yet. Because unfinished things resist being set down, they stay in the hands through no fault of the holder. They require completion, not willpower, to be released. The completion is coming. There's something about the conversation itself, the one they're coming back to have, that I want to try to describe in terms of what it's going to feel like in the room. Different, that's the first thing. Different from previous conversations with this person, different from whatever the texture of your interactions has been, different from the last significant thing said between you. There's going to be a quality of care to it that might catch you off guard. Not performance of care, the actual kind, the specific way someone speaks when they've thought carefully about what they're saying, when they've considered not just what they want to communicate, but what you need to hear. When the usual filters of self-protection have been, if not completely removed, at least significantly lowered, and that lowering that vulnerability in how they're speaking is going to do something to you that you might not be prepared for. It's going to be harder to stay defended than you expected. Because defended makes sense when someone is coming at you with their own protection still in place. When the conversation is two people maintaining their respective positions, that's familiar. You know how to navigate that. This is different. Someone coming towards you with their defenses down is a different kind of encounter entirely. And meeting that with full defense feels, even to your own protective instincts, like bringing the wrong tool. I want to say something about what you're going to feel when this actually happens. When they reach out, when the message arrives or the call comes, or however the initial contact makes itself known, your first response is going to be complicated. Not simple relief, not simple resistance, something that contains both. The part of you that has been carrying the weight of the unfinished thing is going to feel something release, a slight immediate loosening of something that has been held. Because even before you know what the conversation will contain, before you know what they're coming to say, the fact of their coming back, the confirmation that they couldn't leave it this way either, is itself a kind of completion. You weren't alone in feeling the incompleteness. That confirmation matters. But alongside the release, the cautious part, the part that has been protecting you, the part that knows what it cost the last time this person had access to the tender things, that part is going to tighten slightly at the same moment the other part releases. And you're going to be holding both simultaneously. Let yourself hold both. Don't override either one in favor of the other. Don't tell the cautious part it has no right to be there, it earned its place. Don't let the cautious part silence the part that feels the release. That part earned its moment too. Both are true. Both are yours. There's something about what this conversation can give you regardless of where it leads. And I want to name this because I think it matters more than the outcome. It gives you truth, whatever the truth is, whatever they're carrying when they come back, whatever the honest version of their experience is, whatever they've arrived at through whatever process brought them here, you're going to receive truth. And for Virgo, for someone whose relationship with truth is foundational, whose integrity is built on accuracy, whose system functions best when working with real information rather than assumptions, receiving truth is not a small thing. Even when the truth is complicated, even when it creates as many questions as it answers, even when what becomes visible is something that requires difficult decisions, truth is workable. What's been making this period difficult isn't primarily the pain of what happened, it's the incompleteness of the information. The gap between what you know and what you need to know to actually process this. The way unfinished things resist processing because there are still missing pieces that the mind keeps reaching for. They're bringing you the missing pieces, whatever shape they arrive in. The last thing, I want to talk about what this moment represents in the larger arc of your life, because I don't think it's just about this specific person or this specific conversation, as significant as both of those are. It's about a pattern completing. Virgo has a relationship with incompleteness that runs deep, a sensitivity to things left unfinished that is more acute than most people experience, a particular difficulty with suspended states, with the things that are neither resolved nor fully released, that sit in the middle and resist categorization. And this return, this conversation, this coming back to what was left unfinished is the beginning of that particular suspended state finding its resolution. Not all suspended states in your life. This specific one, and the experience of a suspended state actually completing of the unfinished thing, finally becoming finished in whatever form that takes, that experience teaches something, reminds you of something you may have lost track of during the long middle of waiting. That completion is possible, that things that feel perpetually suspended don't have to stay that way. That patience, the specific, unglamorous, nobody rewards you for it patience of someone who keeps living while something unresolved hangs in the background, that patience is not always waiting for nothing. Sometimes it's waiting for the thing to be ready. This thing is ready. And they're coming back to say, so let them, whatever comes from the conversation, whatever it opens or closes or changes or confirms, let them come back. Let the suspended thing find its resolution. Let the sentence finally have its period. You've been holding the incomplete thing with enough grace for long enough. It's time for it to complete. If something in this touch, something you've been carrying, if a moment landed in a way that felt true, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what resonated, even just a few words. It means more than you know.